YouTube Ozico in the Godow's is back with 10 more NFL trades that could happen at any time. Realistic trades that could happen at any time between now and maybe around that roster deadline day, which is next Tuesday, but trades could happen just after as well. It's going to be a busy next week or so because there's going to be a lot of cuts, trades. We'll have you covered for that as it happens with reactions on our Twitter, so make sure you follow that. But these trades are already getting started. Isaiah Simmons traded this morning to the Giants. Cardinals could be having a fire sale. Talk about more Cardinals players and others in this video. Recent video, it's the same thing, different scenarios. I'd recommend checking that out as well, see if any of these happen. But like, subscribe to notifications on. Our in-season content right around the corner. Follow us on Twitter. Very, very important. Twitter subs. Get bonus content, access to our special leagues with prizes. And then you can check out the comment section where you'll find social media links and sponsor links. Liquid IV, code GOAT. GLD Shop. Always rocking their jewelry, code GOAT on there as well. So 10 realistic trades. Kind of going back to Jonathan Taylor. We talked about him in the last video, but a little bit more came out. Which teams, we kind of knew which teams would be interested. And the Dolphins are mentioned most. They were also mentioned most with Dalvin Cook. They didn't land him as well. Apparently they're on Josh Jacobs. They were at least. So they're serious about adding a running back. But a little bit more info comes out. We've heard that NFL executives and GMs, their value or where they think the value is for Jonathan Taylor at this time for a trade is much less than what the Colts or maybe what we, all of us, think would be at for Taylor. So, but again, he's on the Colts right now. They have to agree to a trade. They're not just going to give him away. So got to be some, meeting in the middle somewhere. It seems like those executives, they're saying it could be a second-round pick maximum, maybe a third, fourth that can turn into a third. Just seems a little low, but I did drop the value a little bit since my last video. So a 2024 second, 2025 third from the Dolphins to the Colts is what I had. Would the Colts even accept this? Would the Dolphins even offer this? They could be lowballing. They made Dalvin Cook an offer. The Jets outbid them. Could it be it's a different situation because it's a trade, but they do have to offer Taylor a contract and then compensation to the Colts. Could the Dolphins be lowballing? Could another team outbid them? It's a possibility. The Dolphins are mentioned the most. Doesn't necessarily mean that they are going to get him. Colts may not trade him at all. Keep that in mind as well. So we'll see. We'll see if the Dolphins have plans, or whoever signs him, trades for him, has plans to sign him long term. The Dolphins are a little thin on future cap, but cap's pretty flexible. Any team can clear it. But do they want to pay a running back long term? Those are the kind of questions these teams need to ask. I've seen scenarios with the Dolphins, including Emmanuel Ogbah, Cedric Wilson. I don't know if the Colts would want those guys. Ogbah a little appealing, but 15 plus million comes along with. Those guys are trade candidates, but might be hard to trade those ones. So we'll see. But Jonathan Taylor is the scenario I came up with for now to the Dolphins. Then another running back here, Michael Carter. The Jets could be looking to move him because they have a very crowded running back room, and they added Dalvin Cook on top of Breece Hall. They drafted Israel Abanikanda, who I like a lot, and they also have Zonovan Knight, which maybe they keep Michael Carter, maybe they cut Zonovan Knight, or try to trade Carter, keep Knight. If they want a fourth running back there, so it's very crowded as you can tell. So Jets might be just looking to move him and get something in return. The Rams made some sense. There was some rumors about the Rams being in on Jonathan Taylor. I don't know if I see that, them paying a running back long-term, giving up picks when they're in some sort of rebuild, retool mode where they want picks maybe. Michael Carter made a little more sense. LaFleur is the offense coordinator over there. He was with the Jets, so he's familiar with Carter's game and maybe his upside. Another reason that made sense. They could use a running back. Value, you end up with a 2025 sixth-round pick. It feels like Michael Carter could be worth a little bit more. Decent back with experience, some experience with upside. This time of the year, teams kind of looking to shed players, and get something in return. So they could be going. We saw Isaiah Simmons go for dirt cheap. So guys could be going for cheaper than we expected. What I thought made sense here actually was a 6th-round pick that maybe can turn into a 5th with play time, certain play time or touches or certain stats. That made sense in this scenario with a guy like Michael Carter. So I did like the Rams as a fit, though. A couple other teams that could be looking for a running back like that. Colts, Vikings, could be a few more as well. So we'll see. But again, I've said it a million times. But I thought that one, in terms of fit, I thought a lot of it made sense there. Sticking with the Jets, maybe a little bit of a bold one. The Jets landing Zach Ertz here. Not so bold as the Cardinals potentially selling, trading players like Zach Ertz. It makes some sense. They're looking to rebuild. Ertz on an expiring deal, coming off the injury. Not going to be, a big time use to them. They're not trying to win right now. So it would make sense to unload him, get another pick. They just traded Isaiah Simmons for next to nothing. So 6th round pick kind of made sense here. 2024 6. Doesn't hold a whole lot of value. He is a little expensive, just over $9 million. That's kind of the tricky part. The team acquiring him has to pay $9 million. Could the Cardinals pay a portion? It's a possibility. But coming off the injury, up there in age, doesn't hold a lot of value to the Cardinals, so it'll be a little cheaper, 6th round pick. The Jets, you may say, do the Jets really need a tight end? I do like Tyler Conklin, athletic weapon in the passing game, guy that can move around a bit, the slot outside. Feels like a move tight end, almost like a receiver. And it's just really going to depend on how they feel about CJ Uzomah, because they're going to value having a duo, in that offense. A lot of 12 personnel using 2 tight ends at the same time, a lot of play action, feature the tight end at times. So, I think, in their win now mode, they're going to add any piece they can. They're not afraid to get better at any position here. So I thought that actually made sense. Pairing Ertz with Conklin, again, depending on how they feel about Uzomah, pairing with Conklin there. Again, the tricky part, Ertz is a little expensive, just over $9 million for the acquiring team, but the Jets have cap space. Remember, Rodgers took a pay cut, basically. Cook was cheaper than expected. And then you got Corey Davis retiring, which got them, some new cap there, some new money, just over $10 million. So they could afford Ertz for sure. And you could say they lost Davis. Could they use a receiver? Maybe, but could have Davis been the odd man out anyways? They got some receivers there. Nobody's really talking about them adding a tight end, but I'd watch out for it possibly. Tyler Higbee's another one that could be available, so I'd watch out for him. In the last video, I had him going to the Cincinnati Bengals. So watch out for the Bengals for a guy like Ertz. I thought Higbee was more of a fit there, and actually a little bit cheaper, more fresh legs there. Bengals are going to spend a lot of money at the tight end position, so I thought that made some sense. So, Cardinals could be selling some guys here. Another one, haven't really heard much about this one, but again, the Cardinals could be sellers. Marquise Brown, an expiring deal, another reason to sell him. And it hasn't looked too great in training camp so far, so another reason. The Broncos, haven't heard anything about this, but the Broncos, I think Sean Payton's kind of looking for his own type, his own flavor of receivers since he's came in. Some talks about Judy and Sutton trades. Obviously, those didn't happen, but now the injuries piling up. They kind of been piling up at the position. And actually, a little bit ago, unfortunately, Jerry Jeudy goes down on the field at practice, the joint practice, and has to be carted off. Seems like a hamstring injury, which are tougher than people realize. Those kind of just stick around a bit, and you just can't come back too early. So that's tough, And they have Marvin Mims, who I like. They're going to have him step up. They still have Cortland Sutton, who I like Cortland Sutton as well. But they could be looking for that extra piece. Judy was going to play, an inside plus outside role. I think you bring in Hollywood Brown. I think Hollywood Brown makes sense as a fit on kind of what they're looking for. Speedy, quick separator, deep threat guy. I'm trying to think of pieces that can help them, not just the depth pieces. Maybe, some people are talking about the Cowboys moving from Michael Gallup. I don't know if I see it, but maybe. But I don't really see it with the Broncos. I don't know if it's a Sean Payton guy here. I think it's also like a Cortland Sutton type guy. They rather just have Cortland Sutton in there. It feels like a really good fit of Hollywood Brown for multiple reasons. All the reasons I explained. The Cardinals could sell him too. They could be on a fire sale here. The issue is he's going to cost over $13 million. The Broncos have roughly $9 million, just over $9 million in cap space. Of course, you can clear cap space, but teams also want to carry cap into the season, for incentives. If anybody gets injured, you want to sign a guy, you want to trade deadline, you want to trade for a guy. So just to be careful, be safe, have some insurance. That's the tricky part here. So I would expect in this scenario, the Cardinals to pay a portion of that salary, of Marquise Brown's salary. So that could kind of raise the value. Figuring out the value is a little tricky again because he's been a little underwhelming, expiring deal, a little expensive. That kind of drops the value, I'd say, around a 5th round pick. You think he does have some potential still. That kind of raises it up. But if the Cardinals pay a portion, they can get a little bit more to help facilitate that trade. So 2024 4th made sense. I think a 3rd would be too rich. The Broncos are a little thin on draft picks. That's another tricky part as well. But the fit in the circumstances of the Broncos' injuries at the position made it make sense. And I don't know who else is available. I mean, there's some sneaky ones out there. Hunter Renfrow, if he wasn't in the division, yes, that would make some sense. But in the division there, so maybe the Raiders would do it. Maybe they would do it. So we'll see. We've talked about this one. We've seen this one. 49ers recently are shopping Trey Lance because he is QB3. Sam Darnold passes him up. And we've linked him to the Vikings in the past, and it turns out that there was actually talks between these two teams in the past this offseason. They broke down, though. But could they start up again? The Vikings could be looking for that quarterback of the future. If Trey Lance is on the cheaper side, a day 3 pick, I think it's worth a shot because you like to think he still has upside, even though it's not looking great for him. But I definitely think it's worth a shot in day 3. 49ers maybe just don't want to give him away because they use a lot of capital on getting him. That's the tricky part. But I thought this made some sense. The Vikings, get Trey Lance. The Niners get a 2024 5th-round pick. I also thought this is one that, 5th that can turn into a 4th or maybe a 5th, maybe another pick in 2025 as well as a possibility. So, it seems to be the team he's being linked to just because there was talks in the past. We'll see if anything actually happens. The name to keep an eye out for. I think everyone knows that. Next, La'el Collins, we talked about a little bit. Talked about the Jets being a possibility. But they're getting some guys back. Dwayne Brown coming back. I guess it depends on how they feel about Mekhi Becton, on his health and his, maybe about him starting at right tackle when he can do that. The Titans made sense as well. They're thin on offensive line. They're weak at the offensive line, across the offensive line. I guess not every single position, but looking at right tackle, Nicholas Petit-Frere suspended for 6 games. Then they're kind of short there at that position. So La'el Collins could be available, which he's a good right tackle, but definitely has some serious durability concerns. So I thought a 2025 5th-round pick, the Titans would, specifically the Titans would be more interested in trading a 2025 draft pick rather than 2024. But the Bengals, shed that salary. And then look to start Jonah Williams at the position. I thought that made some sense there. So La'el Collins, the Titans, something I'm looking at. And then the smaller one here, the Giants trading. The Giants actually just traded for Isaiah Simmons this morning. And what's the plan with him? Move him around a bit, inside linebacker, maybe off the edge sometimes, and then maybe in the slot covering. I think for the most part, inside linebacker that they use to blitz cover. So could be looking for some depth at the edge position because they got a pretty good duo starting with Thibodeau and Aguilari, but they have some durability issues. I don't know if we want to label Thibodeau with durability issues yet, but they've missed some games here and there. So I thought, having some insurance here, Julian Okwara makes sense, and he could be pretty cheap. I thought a 2025 7th could even be conditional. Made some sense there. The Lions pass rusher that I'm surprised hasn't done more yet because he was extremely productive. Production's not everything, but at Notre Dame, extremely productive. So you like to think he has a little more upside still. So would be a very, very no risk. I was going to say low risk, but no risk, and maybe some potential here for a guy like that. Again, guy to watch out for. One of the smaller names to watch out for here. Derek Barnett, haven't really heard much about this, but the Eagles have a long list of pass rushers. Barnett coming off the injury. They made his contract more tradable this offseason, Barnett, that is. The Eagles, I feel like with them, though, the reason, maybe to argue against this, their philosophy, Howie Roseman's philosophy seems to be he never could have enough pass rushers. They're always looking for more. And they got different style, different types of pass rushers. So that'd be the reason to keep him. But I think you get something in return for trading them, and they have plenty of options at the position, in my opinion. So the Jags made sense. And Doug Peterson's actually a bonus. I know he's more of an offensive mind, but he's familiar with Derek Barnett. Just something I thought of now, actually. A little bit of a bonus. But the Jags, I think, could be a team to watch for a serious rotation piece. They would like to start Josh Allen and Trayvon Walker, but they had Arden Key as a rotation, a serious rotation piece last year. They could be looking for that still. At the same time, we saw them have all 3 of those guys, Key and the 2 guys I mentioned, on the field at the same time, mainly because Walker you can move around a bit. You can do different things with. So they would like to have another piece here. I thought Barnett made sense as a fit because they'll give different looks. Barnett can give different looks standing up and the dirt. And the Eagles, maybe they don't want to get rid of him, but they have a long list of guys there and a 2024 5th-round pick. I thought made sense for the Eagles. If it's cheaper than that, maybe not. They would rather just keep him. Fifth's pretty good for a guy coming off an injury. I know he's pretty decent. But I thought that was pretty good value, and that kind of would be, in my opinion, what it would take for the Eagles to do it. If it was a 6, possible. Keep that in mind. 6 is maybe possible, but they may, again, we'd rather just keep them. The Jags were a team that popped in mind right away when it came to a guy like Barnett, but there's some other teams that could be looking for, quite a few other teams that could be looking for a pass rusher. Saints, Bears, quite a few teams there. But Texans are trading for offensive tackle Josh Jones. So there's another Cardinals trade. So as I'm doing this video, so the Cardinals are selling. We had Josh Jones as the potential trade candidate as well. So Cardinals unloading some guys. Next, we got a big blockbuster one here. I'm not really counting on a Chris Jones trade, but holdout going on right now. And it's surprising the Chiefs aren't giving him a deal that he deserves. I guess we don't know what the talks are like, but I thought was arguably the best defensive player in football last year. So I think right now, if a trade were to happen right now, it's kind of limited on which teams could actually do it because how expensive he is, how more expensive he will be. So I thought of the Patriots, the Bears, and the Lions. Teams that can afford them, teams that can use them, could be a fit. I think the Lions are set with what they have. They kind of want to work with those guys. The Bears kind of in the middle. I could see them doing it, but also maybe similar. Drafted some young players, added some players there. The Patriots made the most sense and would be willing to do it. I think a good fit. Plenty of cap space in the future, loads of cap space. But it'd be pretty expensive to trade for Chris Jones. Because he's an elite player. Again, I thought, in my opinion, he was the best defensive player in football last year, but he was definitely up there. Was a major factor, for the Chiefs, for that defense. Had to be doubled a lot. It's a big-time interior pass rusher, and that is extremely, extremely valuable. So first-round pick most definitely has to be involved. I think a bit more, too, just how valuable a player he is. But 2024 first and a 2025 second is what I came up with. That's some pretty big draft value, but I think the Patriots maybe would be willing to part to get a big-time player like that, plug him in on the interior, inside Matthew Judon and players that they have there. So thought that was probably the best fit / landing spot based off of several things there if he were to be traded. People want me to talk about Chris Jones. I left my last video, if he were to be traded. But I guess things are getting interesting. We never thought they would trade Tyreek Hill. They did it, So, again, not counting on this to happen, but possibly could. I like the teams that I mentioned there. Patriots, Bears probably lead the way. The Lions I really like. They just might be sticking with the development of what they have. And then one more Cardinals one. If the Cardinals are sellers, we've got to throw Budda Baker in here, with which there were some rumors earlier in the offseason, but maybe they sniffed around a little bit. Maybe teams called, nothing would happen, and they end up redoing his contract. So it really felt like because of that, he could stay, and he does fit Jonathan Gannon's secondary pretty well, in my opinion. Basically what he's trying to do. So he could definitely stay, but they could be sellers. Somebody could be interested. I'm surprised the Packers didn't pick anybody else up yet. They could definitely use another piece up, back there. I think a scheme fit, based on how they run that defense, what coverages they want to run, but I think they could use them all over the place. And they can, Savage is more of a free safety, but we've seen them run split safety. We've seen them move around a bit. You put Savage in the slot, so he's kind of more of a free slot guy. Budda Baker's kind of all of the above guy. So they kind of can complement each other pretty well. So I thought for several reasons, the Packers have some money to spend right now, and they might be a little more serious now. I think they're, I'm realizing, the Packers might be competing a little bit more than we thought. Packers might see that with Jordan Love, if he's better than they expected. So, let's take that last piece of the puzzle for that defense. So that made some sense. Expiring deal, little expensive, going to want a bigger deal at the same time. So I don't know if his value is going to be super, super high. So I thought a lone second-round pick, which is pretty valuable, made some sense. I don't think in any way it would be a first. Even if he was under contract on a good contract and didn't want more money, I don't think it would be a first still. I think in that case, it would be like a second and a third or a second, fourth, and sixth, something like that. So factor in that expiring deal, wants more money, and the lone second makes it. And maybe teams wouldn't even offer that. Maybe it would be a third and a fourth. Cardinals just looking to get any picks they can get right now. They're full rebuild, it feels like. So it could definitely be less. I think Cardinals fans would be extremely disappointed with that, probably more so that than the Simmons one, but they got to be disappointed in the Simmons one as well. again, I thought the Packers made the most sense. I like the Jaguars as well, the Eagles. I think if I had to pick 3 teams, those would probably be the best ones in terms of fit, who can make it happen. Packers, Jags, Eagles. Packers and Jags being standing out the most in terms of scheme fit there and what they're looking for. But, yeah, so those are 10 more trades. I think these are serious candidates. These are serious candidates. The guys, we've had a candidates video. We had another trade scenarios video, and this one. These are all serious candidates. A lot of these guys could be dealt. Some of them have already been dealt. Trying to pinpoint where they're going to go and their value right now, kind of going for cheap, is the tricky part. But I like some of these fits that we had. And we're always talking about this, giving updates on our Twitter, breaking news, instant reaction. So for stuff like this, it's very, very important to follow our Twitter. There's a link pinned in the comments for that. Anything else you're looking for, recent videos, sponsors, other social media, so check it out. Like, subscribe to notifications on, all kinds of content like this and more, predictions, rankings, picks, future predictions, things like that. So check us out. Join us. We much appreciate it. It's going to do it. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.